So yesterday we did some basic concepts and I gave you one statement also. Constitution is written with blood and not in ink. Anything you want to tell on that? You thought on that? No, why only our constitution? This is in general. Whether it is American constitution, whether it is French constitution, whether it is Soviet constitution or Chinese constitution, constitutions are written with blood, fine, and hence constitutions have to be seen with a greater sanctity than the ordinary law, and constitutions are meant to endure for generations, and hence, and the constitutions endure when they endure when the people follow the constitution. So constitutional morality. Anybody else thought something different? You went home and wrote, yeah. एक थीम तुम्हारा क्या है? बस थीम बताओ. Very good. Good idea. Anyone else? Very nice. मतलब बहुत ही ज़्यादा अच्छा तुमने तो लिख दिया. That's very good. See, writing ethical essays is the easiest. The only thing is you need to be little bit imaginative and see, like, it is about interpreting the word. Ink means it can be changed. Fine. Very good interpretation. What else? तुम्हारा तो हो गया. तुम बताओ. One more point. Okay. It should not be changed easy at ease. Yes. It is a struggle. ठीक है. It is a struggle. It is a special, and it is a something not easy. It is not. It has never been a free gift. So what you do every line, every day keep on adding to this idea how further you can explore and what all. Yes. Binding all the religion is not a relevant issue here. Yes. जो ethical essays होते हैं वो abstract होते हैं. Fine. तो art क्या होता है? Abstract things make concrete. How do you make it? Through example. Example वाले जैसे ऐसे आ जाए तो what you have to do? You have to bring out the philosophy of it. ठीक है? So that is what you have to play with this. Fine? Yes. You can relate with the current affairs. So now for this particular statement, today all of you go and read Ambedkar's speech. Note it down. Ambedkar's speech, and tomorrow tell me the highlights of that speech. Grammar of Anarchy speech. You can give, see, ethical essays. As you know, this course also includes the essay part. Fine. So what you can do when these abstract essays come, you give examples. Now examples can be taken even from the outside world also. You can take example of China, you can take example of the, like something you will study in world history, why this revolution takes place. You can link it with that. So important thing is you need to learn or you need to develop the practice of thinking कि ये link हो सकता है, anything, कोई development हुआ, how it can be linked. Fine. So anyway, now come back to the discussion we were having yesterday over the state types of constitutions. Fine. And we discussed two basic types, written, unwritten and all. Fine. Now, constitution is a power document. Fine. It tells which branch of government has what powers. So it is always the constitution is the constitution of the state. State has its constitution. Like we as a person have our body. So states are constituted on some principles. Fine. It can be a unitary way of organizing things. It can be a federal way of organizing things. Fine. So constitutions tell the principles on which the state is based. Fine. Now, a state you cannot see. A state is an abstraction. Fine. So, a state comes in the form of government. Fine. So, normally, the constitutions are created to explain which branch of government has what functions, what powers. Fine. So three branches we have. We come to know about legislature, executive and judiciary. Fine. Now in modern times, it is not necessary that the state will be having only these three institutions. You can have more institutions. Fine. For example, our constitution also include election commission. Our constitution writes about CAG. Our constitution writes about finance commission, some sort of autonomous bodies. Fine. So right now, it is not enough to say that the constitutions are only explaining the powers of the government. Fine. So there can be certain bodies which are not completely controlled by the government. Their powers, etc., can also be discussed in the constitution. Fine. And since we are talking about the functions, what functions they will be performing? Now, performing their function require powers. Now, what is the limit of these powers? For that, countries, democratic countries have fundamental rights. But basically, that is the main aspects which is found in the constitution. Fine. So, constitution of the state means you understand the principles of government and what are different functions of the three branches of government. And now the modern constitutions have the institutions beyond government also. Is this clear? So just write constitution. Constitution of the state basically tells about the powers and functions of government. Right. The three branches of government are legislature, executive, and judiciary. Okay? Now you write about contemporary concept, contemporary approach. Okay? Right? Right? Present constitutions can have bodies which are beyond these three institutions. Okay? So, right, they are called as autonomous bodies. They can be relatively autonomous, semi-autonomous, but idea is to in autonomous bodies. For example, in India, we have Election Commission, CAG, Finance Commission, and other bodies also. Fine. Now these are called as institutions, and governance is more than institutions. Fine. So now let us see further on these constitutions and types and what are the basic types of the constitutions. Fine. So let us see further basic types. You can write that constitutions contain the basic principles on which a political system is based. Political system is based. Okay. To write, in present times, we see two basic forms of governments. One is democratic, second is authoritarian. Fine. Authoritarian you can also consider as dictatorships. Fine. Where will you put China? China is an example of authoritarian. India, democracy. India, let's not talk about India, let's talk about USA. Fine. So basically, democracy is also called as, Western countries are called as democratic. Fine. And non-Western world, with the exception of India, is primarily authoritarian. Now Russia comes in Western or non-Western? Non-Western, East है. तो Russia जैसे Putin का regime है, is there elections take place in Russia? Yes, but West call it authoritarian. ठीक है? तो democracy word can be used interchangeably for the West. Fine. Now democracy and authoritarianism. democracy represent liberalism. Have you heard about liberalism? So these countries are called as liberal countries. We can put India also. And authoritarian, China is what? Officially, China is a communist country. North Korea is a communist country. Fine. Where will you put Iran? Authoritarian or democratic? Authoritarian. Fine. Because ये सब जो definitions हैं, they are given by the West. तो हम Western concept को ही normal मान के we will classify. ठीक है? तब Iranian not necessarily communist. Fine. Their authoritarian models can even non-communist model also. Fine. So you can also have even the non-communist model. Example is, let's say, Iran. Fine. So now we are not so much concerned about these countries. We have to understand these countries because Indian political system is also Western, Indian political system is also liberal. Fine. And this is not very important to understand. Fine. So now let us see systems of governance in liberal countries, right? Systems of governance in liberal countries. Liberalism, do you understand? Liberalism is a philosophy which talks about liberty. ठीक है? Liberty मतलब rights, freedom. तो liberal countries का feature of liberal countries constitution is what? They give you rights. अब rights means obviously democracy. Rights, freedom, democracy. These are the things that you talk in the liberal countries. So what are the salient features of their constitutions? Fine. That includes India also. ठीक है? देखो right. First, the recognition of rights. Recognition of rights. Rights of the people. Second, separation of powers. You know who has given this concept? Montesquieu. Fine. In his book, Constitution of Liberty. Now, what is the purpose of separation of power? जैसे जो Western countries हैं, liberty is very important. And separation of power is given for the purpose of liberty only. Fine. So, if all powers are concentrated in the legislature, executive and judiciary, the liberties of the people will not be protected. So, ultimate aim of a liberal country, ultimate value is liberty. Separation of powers is a means to achieve the liberty. Fine. Now, next feature of these countries is independence of judiciary. Next, free and fair elections. Next, competitive party system. Competitive party system means where party has a option that it can do or matlab there will be an option with the people to change the party. Fine. Now let's not talk about Iran, let's talk about China. Do you find these features? No. एक और feature लिखो, pluralism of values. Pluralism of values means people can follow different ideologies. जैसे इंडिया में there can be a communist party, there can be rightist party, there can be a centrist party. Fine. Now let us compare with authoritarianism or China, or compare it with communist country, right? अब देखो features of communist country. Do they believe in freedom? No, right? No concept of freedom. Now socialism, communism stands for what value? Equality, right? Social, they stand for social and economic equality. Social and economic equality. So in these countries, people have social and economic rights. Fine. Now, what is the second feature of our democratic country? Separation of powers. Is there separation of powers in China? No separation of power. Not only among the different branches, there is no separation. There is no separation even between the government and the party. Fine. The head of the Communist Party will also be the head of the government. Fine. So it is actually the dictatorship of a Communist Party. Fine. So here write next, no separation of power, not even between government and party. Right? For example, in China, head of the Communist Party is head of the government. In democratic countries, you add one more characteristic, neutral bureaucracy. एक और characteristic लिखो democratic का. Bureaucracy has to be neutral. Neutral bureaucracy. Democratic में एक और add करो. Second, next feature क्या था democracy का? Independence, judiciary. Do you think there is a judicial independence in China? No. तो इसमें चाइना में लिखो राइट, इन चाइना वी हैव कमिटेड जुडिशरी. कमिटेड जुडिशरी. ठीक है. तो देयर आर टू पर्सन्स, वन आर कम्युनिस्ट एंड अदर इज नॉन कम्युनिस्ट. Judiciary is to give judgment in favor of a communist. Fine. So in China there is no independent judiciary. Fine. Next feature, free and fair. So they have periodic elections, but they are not free and fair. Fine. Right. They may have periodic elections, but they cannot be considered as free and fair. They can have periodic. No. Free कैसे, जब किसी के पास right ही नहीं है. They can be periodic, but they are not free. Free election नहीं होता उनके यहाँ. Competitive party system ही नहीं. जब और पार्टीज ही नहीं है, एक ही पार्टी को इलेक्ट करना है इलेक्शन में, ठीक है। अब नेक्स्ट फीचर क्या है? कॉम्पिटेटिव पार्टी सिस्टम। चाइना हैज अ कॉम्पिटेटिव पार्टी सिस्टम? नो। सिंगल को हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? हेजेमोनिक पार्टी, हेजेमनी, जिसे हटाया नहीं जा सकता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इन इंडिया ऑल्सो टिल 1967 Congress was a hegemonic party. Other parties could not displace it. So the better word is hegemonic party. So China has other parties just to show to the world that their election is free and fair. But those parties have no chance to form the government at all. Fine? Write it down. Hegemonic party system. Write in bracket, in simple language, one party which cannot be displaced. One party which cannot be changed, replaced. Next feature, pluralism. There is no pluralism of values. So in China, you cannot have your own values, you cannot have your own ideology. Full stop. Likho, right? Chinese constitution expects that people should be committed to communism. People should be committed to. Chinese constitution expect people should be committed to communism. तो जैसे उनका पार्टी कांग्रेस, शी जिनपिंग said communism with or socialism with Chinese characteristics. Fine. Even like he wants now globalization should also have Chinese characteristics. Fine. Next feature. Yes, right. Committed bureaucracy, not neutral. Committed to what? Communism. Go right. Committed to communism, which means communist party. एक लास्ट पैराग्राफ लिखो. Chinese constitution recognizes the contribution of Communist Party and suggest that China will move in future under the guidance of Communist Party. Any such reference to any party in our constitution? No. So China is what? You can call it, it's a dictatorship of a communist party. Fine. So which form of government you have? Dictatorship of communist party in China. This type of a system does not found in India or developed. Pardon? Socialist system. For general studies, you should take socialism, communism, same. Fine. The only thing is, communism is a form of socialism. You can call China socialist also. There is no problem. Fine. ये जनरल स्टडीज में बहुत डीप में जाने की जरूरत नहीं कि डिफरेंस क्या होता है. बस चाइना इज ऑल्सो सोशलिज्म. Our, yes, that you have to understand that when Indira Gandhi came to power, 42nd amendment is called as a mini constitution. Our original constitution didn't have anything like socialist word written. She has introduced. So she was trying to change the basic structure of the constitution. Fine. And in the process, she was trying to bring many features of a communist country. Like she even called for committed bureaucracy. Have you heard of it? Indira Gandhi called for committed bureaucracy. Indira Gandhi even didn't want independent judiciary. Indira Gandhi wanted committed judiciary. Fine. So India was, and besides in economic sphere, India was taking the socialistic turn. And she was a head of the Congress party, she was the head of the government, and there was no difference in the party. So India remained democratic only in form. Then in 42nd Amendment Act, 40 fundamental duties were also introduced. And she had introduced emergency even on internal grounds, though it was not needed as emergency was already there. But, and then suspension of the rights. So India was moving towards the socialistic model completely. But because of, you can say, Jayaprakash Narayan's total revolution, awareness of the civil society, and then judicial activism, things could have been stopped. So India was moving towards that particular line. Fine. So have you understood this basic difference? Democracy. So now we'll not talk much about it. We'll talk first about the types of systems democratic countries have. Fine. Aap likho, right? The democratic constitutions are organized on either unitary lines or federal. Unitary or federal. Fine. Now, what is the difference in unitary and federal form of government? For that, we have to first understand some words. To understand this distinction, one word is deconcentration. Another word is delegation. Then there is a word devolution. And then there is a word decentralization. Fine. Now, deconcentration means in a single department, the powers are deconcentrated from one officer, it is given to other officer. You can have, let's say, some officer on a special duty. Fine. So what will happen? Powers are deconcentrated at the same level. Fine. This is not so relevant for us. Now, when we are talking about delegation and devolution, fine, there will be, we will be talking with reference to two layers. Fine. So two layers, there can be union government and there can be state governments, provincial governments. Fine. Now union government can delegate some functions to the state government. What is delegate? Delegation is a executive act. Executive on its own gives power to the state governments. Fine. Now, there can also be a way where union devolves power. Devolve is a legislative act. Fine. Means union brings a law and say that from now onwards, this power will be exercised by the state government. Fine. Now, state government getting that power, where is more surety? Devolution is better or delegation is better? Devolution is better. Fine. Now, what is this decentralization? Decentralization means there is no center. ठीक है? यानी there is no one above, no one below. ठीक है? तो अभी do you know about 7th schedule of Indian Constitution? India is a federation. You have union government, you have a state government. In 7th schedule, there are list, union list, state list and concurrent list. Fine. Now the subjects on the state list. A state has power to make law. Do they have to ask from the union? No. Do you think we can call it decentralization? Yes. Federalism is actually decentralization. समझ में आया? मतलब this government and this government, there is no authority over and above their sphere. Fine. And they all are getting which type of power? They are getting power from the constitution. Fine. So in decentralization, both the branches of government will have original powers. Is this clear? Or federalism. Federalism can be understood as decentralization only. आया कुछ समझ में? नहीं आया. ठीक है. अब इसका एक एग्जाम्पल बताते हैं. Now, tell me, India is a 2-tier federation or 3-tier? 2-tier federation. Fine. Even after 73rd Amendment Act and 74th Amendment Act, don't you think you have a 3-level governments? नहीं है. भाई यूनियन गवर्नमेंट है, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट है और लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट है. तो 3-tier है या 2-tier है? 2-tier क्यों है? Okay, fine. So अब इंडिया का जो फेडरलिज्म है, when 73rd amendment was introduced, the government has claimed it is going to introduce the 3-tier. ठीक है? 3-tier they have introduced also in terms of structure. Fine. Union, state and local. Structure में 3-tier है, but functions में it is 2-tier. ठीक है? Means the way state governments have a original power from the constitution, panchayats do not have original powers from the constitution. So constitution में there is also 12th schedule and there is 13th schedule. Fine. 12th schedule contains functions of panchayats. Sorry, 11th and 12th schedule, functions of panchayats, and 12th contain functions of municipalities. But just because it is written, it does not mean that they automatically get power to make law. Fine? Panchayats can make law on their subjects, which is given in the 11th schedule, only when state legislature permit them. Fine? It means the panchayats enjoy only devolved powers, and the real decentralization has not happened. Is this clear? So, these are different words. If you will understand these words, then you will understand the concept of federation. Now, which form of government is Britain? Unitary or federal? Unitary. Fine. In Britain, do we have provincial governments? Yes or no? We don't have government of Scotland. We do not have Scottish Assembly. We do not have Assembly of Northern Ireland. You do not have Assembly of Wales, or you have? है कि नहीं ब्रिटेन में? है. ठीक है? Because the country cannot be ruled from one center. Fine. There is a Scottish Parliament. Scotland to even wants independence. Fine. But it is not called as a federation. Why? Because in Britain, the powers of subnational governments are devolved powers. Union government has given this power. Union government can take it. If union wants to take it, they cannot claim that this is our power and we will not give you. Anyway, in Britain, the principle of parliamentary sovereignty applies. ठीक है? But in India, if center starts usurping the power of state governments can resist. State governments can go to Supreme Court under Article 131. So status different hai, but they also have provincial governments. Okay. So now, when I have to make a difference between the unitary and the federal form of government, I will explain that in unitary form of government, subnational governments will have either delegated powers or devolved powers. Fine. But in a federal form of government, subnational, it can be single tier, it can be two tier, but they have original form of power. ठीक है? Their powers are not taken from the center. Their powers are original powers. Original powers are given from the constitution. People have made the constitution. People have said defense, this is union government will say, rural development, this is a state government subject. And if a state intervenes in union or union intervenes in a state, you can go to the Supreme Court as an arbitrator to resolve this issue. Fine. So, even in unitary form of governments, sub-national level governments exist or not? They may exist. But what will be the basic difference in the power? Their power is decentralized or original, whereas in a unitary system, they will be having either delegated power or devolved. Their status will not be that strong. Is it clear? Okay. So now let us see first you have written these words, delegation and all. So pehle Deconcentration is not needed. बस ऐसे लिखो, delegation is an executive act. Devolution is a legislative act. Decentralization, right? Right. It represent original powers drawn from the Constitution. अब देखो, right? In case of India, there is a decentralization between union and states, but no real decentralization between state and panchayats, yeah, local governments. So in exam, they ask you a question like 73rd Amendment is a half-baked cake. Fine. Why it is half? It creates the institutions, but it does not give the powers. Fine. So now let us understand what is a basic difference. What is a basic difference in unitary and federal form of government? Right. In unitary form of government, the powers of subnational governments are either delegated or devolved. Next. However, in next, a federal mein, let's see, in federal form of government, powers of subnational governments are original. Full stop. Principle of decentralization is followed. Principle of decentralization is followed. Right? No government is superior or subordinate. No government is superior or subordinate. Right? Each is supreme. Each is supreme in its own sphere. Right? For example, if union encroaches the power of a state, a state can approach to Supreme Court or a federal court and vice versa. and vice versa. Is federalism the basic structure of our constitution? ठीक है? You have understood unitary system. Now you must have heard about confederation, right? So now let us understand what is confederation. ऐसे लिखो, what is confederation? फेडरेशन में CON लगा दो. What is confederation? ठीक है? Right? Confederation is opposite to unitary form of government. ठीक है? अब एग्जाम्पल लिखो. एग्जाम्पल ऑफ कॉन्फेडरेशन इज लेट्स से सार्क. सार्क. अब हाउ इट बिकम्स अपोजिट? इन यूनिटरी सिस्टम सेंटर, ठीक है, या सेंटर गिव्स पावर्स टू द स्टेट्स. फाइन. But in confederation, states create center. जैसे साउथ एशिया में इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, श्रीलंका, they have created the center in the sense of SARC. तो किसका अपोजिट हो गया? यूनिटरी का कि फेडरल का? कॉन्फेडरेशन इज अपोजिट ऑफ व्हाट? यूनिटरी. तो सार्क की जो पावर्स हैं, दे आर डेलीगेटेड पावर्स. whenever these states want to withdraw, they can withdraw. ठीक है? Fine. So confederation is opposite of unitary system. In confederation, states are creating the union center. Here center is giving power to the states. Any confusion? Britain. Britain is an example of unitary system. तो ब्रिटेन में प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट्स तो हैं स्कॉटलैंड में, लेकिन they are created by the center. Center has given some of its power. Is this clear? Yes, that I will tell. Fine. You have understood this point. Now second point you write. In confederation can be called as loose federation. Loose federation. Underline karo loose. Right? It means units can leave. Units can leave. Leave कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? अब लिखो राइट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फॉर्मर USSR was a confederation. Leave the center. Former USSR was also a confederation. ठीक है? अब just write, what is a basic difference? What is a basic difference in a federation and confederation? Which is the first federation? US. In USA, center is created by the states. You also read that it is coming together model. ठीक है? And what is confederation? Center is creating, states are creating the center. So states came and created United States of USA. So the question is USA a confederation or a federation? इस definition से क्या है US? Or if you look at the formation of USA, confederation. ठीक है? But every constitution is what? An organic document. So when this theory came and when clarity came that is USA a federation as a confederation, that was during the Civil War, when southern states, they wanted to go out of the federation. Okay? So that time US Supreme Court held, it is true that in USA states have created a federation or center, but USA is not a confederation. USA is a federation. And what US Supreme Court said, USA is a federation. And what is federation? Indestructible union. Means once you join the union, you cannot leave. If you try to leave, union can use force. अब इंडिया क्या है? फेडरेशन की कॉन्फेडरेशन? फेडरेशन. Fine. Now, state of Jammu and Kashmir, it has signed the instrument of accession and joined the federation. Fine. So when it has joined the federation and it becomes a state under Article 1 of Indian Constitution, do they have right to secede? They do not have right to secede. So if there will be a secessionist movement, if there is a separatist movement, it is within the domain of the international law that government of India can use force. So confederation, जैसे USSR क्या है? Confederation, destructible union, and federation is indestructible union. ठीक है? तो पहला डिफरेंस लिखो, point number 1. Right? Confederation is a destructible union. Right? Federation is indestructible union. Indestructible union. अब एक और डिफरेंस लिखो, सेकेंड. In confederation, countries have rights to conduct their foreign policies. Countries लिखो या units लिख दो. Units have right to conduct their foreign policies. ठीक है? Right. In federation, units surrender their external sovereignty. External sovereignty means no right to conduct independent foreign policy. No right to conduct independent foreign policy. So if you see USSR and earlier Central Asian states, they were part of USSR. So the Central Asian states or all republics of USSR, they were allowed to have their own independent relations. So even when USSR was there, India had relations with Moscow India also had its diplomatic presence in Tajikistan and all countries of Central Asia, and they could have their own foreign policies also. But in a federation, a state cannot be allowed to conduct a foreign policy. अब सार्क क्या है? Confederation. तो सार्क की states are free to have their foreign policy, but Indian states, are they free? They are not free. तो इंडियन स्टेट में अगर फिर जेके में कहा जाता है कि वी वांट मीडिएशन बाय पाकिस्तान, इज इट परमिसिबल? You cannot have your own foreign policy. Fine. So, confederation countries will not lose their external sovereignty. तो अभी जैसे in case of Jammu and Kashmir, like there was one case, Sarfesi case, ठीक है, something related to the bank, and the according to the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, their high court is a highest court of appeal. Fine. And in all other high courts in the rest part of the territory, Supreme Court is a highest court of appeal, and all high courts come under the disciplinary power of Supreme Court. And if any case is pending in, let's say, Punjab High Court, but you have some concerns, the case can be transferred to UP High Court. But that Sarfesi case, there was a lack of clarity that, and let's say, I think something related to SBI, so they were not comfortable, and they requested that the case which is pending in JK High Court should be transferred to Bombay High Court. So the JK High Court held this power Supreme Court does not have. So in that sense, Supreme Court has clarified that Jammu Kashmir cannot have the constitution which is over and above the Indian constitution. Fine. And Supreme Court also clarified, and Supreme Court had transferred the case. And Supreme Court even clarified that as far as JK is concerned, our constitution is quasi-federal. Fine. You have heard about this term, quasi-federal. Means if our constitution is federal with respect to other states, our constitution is federal only for the namesake as far as the Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Matlab, other states actually have more power even before the recent change. Other states had more autonomy. They are more protected by the constitution than Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir का क्या था? Special status था. अभी क्या कर दिया है? UT. जितने भी UTs हैं, let's say Delhi, Pondicherry, इन सबके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अपना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्वाजी फेडरली है. जम्मू कश्मीर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में वो पहले ही यूटी था, अभी सिर्फ कहा गया, अभी एक्सप्लिसिटली बताया गया है. ठीक है. और जेके के पावर्स एक्चुअली कम थे, लेकिन लोगों को क्या लगता था कि पावर्स ज्यादा हैं, लेकिन पावर्स वैसे थे नहीं. यानी कि स्टेट्स में के सब्जेक्ट्स को अगर हम एनक्रोच करते तो अमेंडमेंट करके कर सकते हो, लेकिन जेके का सिस्टम कुछ भी बदला जा सकता था थ्रू द प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर. ठीक है. जैसे पौंडीचेरी का बदला जा सकता है. जेके का तो स्टेटस वाज वीकर देन दिल्ली आल्सो, बिकॉज दिल्ली में भी अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन चेंज चाहिए तो अमेंडमेंट करना पड़ेगा. जेके में तो प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर से हो सकता था. ठीक है. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये क्लैरिफाई कर दिया था कि बाकी स्टेट्स के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में तो इंडिया फेडरल है, जेके में तो क्वाजी फेडरल है, तो ऐसी बातें कर नहीं सकते कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट कैन नॉट ट्रांसफर द केस फ्रॉम हियर एंड देयर, ठीक है। तो इसीलिए 370 एज एन आर्टिकल, it was neither satisfying the people in Jammu and Kashmir because it was just an eyewash of autonomy. Plus, it was also confusing from this side also, and it used to lead to unnecessary litigation, and then judiciary used to come and clarify this. So, from the perspective of administrative convenience also, they have tried जो चीज people were understanding but not accepting, तो वो अब black and white में accept हो गया. There's no change that has happened. Have you understood this? तो confederation, federation, this difference you have understood, that there is no freedom to have a foreign policy of its own. Is this clear? You understand unitary, federal and confederation. Is it clear? Chalo, up next let us see types of federations. Prashant, types of federations. Now, in the types of federations, we have two basic models. ठीक है, इसमें लिखो two basic models. One you write US model, and second Indian model or Canadian model. टेबल में यू कैन, या जैसे भी लिखना है, इंडियन मॉडल और कैनेडियन मॉडल. आई थिंक यू मेक इट अ टेबल एंड यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड. एक तरफ यूएस लिखो और एक तरफ इंडियन और कैनेडियन. फाइन. Fine. So, अब US model and Indian model, what is the basic difference? What is the defining feature of Indian model of federalism? Have you ever heard any word for Indian federalism? What Modi ji talks about? Cooperative, competitive, but वो तो secondary है. Main Indian model is called as cooperative federalism. Fine. तो US model is called as what? Dual federalism. ठीक है. तो ओरिजिनल मॉडल ऑफ फेडरलिज्म कौन सा है? यूएस. ठीक है. तो यूएस के नीचे लिखो डुअल फेडरलिज्म. और इंडिया के नीचे कोऑपरेटिव. कोऑपरेटिव. अब यहां पर एज अ नोट यू राइट, since India is cooperative federalism, some scholars call India quasi-federal. Some scholars call India quasi-federal. Underline karo quasi-federal. What do you mean? What do they mean to say? Right? Federal in form, यूनिटरी इन स्पिरिट। क्वाजी फेडरल का मतलब क्या है? ये वर्ड एक हम लोग फेडरलिज्म करेंगे सेपरेटली, बट राइट नाउ फेडरल इन फॉर्म बट यूनिटरी इन स्पिरिट। ठीक है, now underline this unitary in spirit. What does it denote? It denotes tilted towards the center. ठीक है, तो cooperative federalism is tilted towards the center. Fine. So basically in cooperative federalism, center acts as big brother. ठीक है, write it down. In cooperative federalism, center acts as big brother. So in our constitution we will see the domination of center. Is it clear? But in USA is this the case? No. ठीक है, अब big brother है. So what is the role of a big brother? Why do you approach the big brother? Help. पैसे चाहिए तो बड़े भाई की याद आती है, अगर वो उसके पास पैसे हो तो। हाँ, ठीक है, तो in India states approach to the union for what? For finances. But does this happen in USA? No. States have financial autonomy there. Fine. So states need not to approach to the union government at all. Fine. So they are completely independent, and that is why it is called as dual federalism. ठीक है, so in dual federalism you write, dual federalism means, right, union and states are two independent set of governments. ठीक है, right, states are autonomous. Right, they need not to approach to the union. Fine. So this is called as dual federalism. So here just write, next लिखो, right, dual federalism is based on the idea of independence. Two governments independent, two parallel governments. ठीक है, in cooperative federalism you write, based on the idea of interdependence. Underline interdependence. You can also call it as interlocking. Interlocking समझते हो? It's not that only state is dependent on union, union is also dependent on the state. So they are not made free, they are made, or they are interlocked with each other. Fine. Now let us see other feature of USA. तो US में you can write, US side में second basic difference, right? US is known as coming together model. Coming together model. States came and formed the center. When states will form the center, will state give up all their powers to the center or try to retain maximum powers with themselves? Maximum power with themselves. तो पावर का फ्लो किधर होगा? टुवर्ड द सेंटर और टुवर्ड्स द स्टेट? टुवर्ड्स द स्टेट. तो फिजिक्स में उसको कहते हैं सेंट्रीफ्यूगल फोर्स. फाइन. तो डुअल फेडरलिज्म और अमेरिकन फेडरलिज्म कैसा है? सेंट्रीफ्यूगल है. ठीक है, अब लिखो राइट. कमिंग टुगेदर मॉडल, फुल स्टॉप, राइट. हेंस स्टेट्स retained the residuary powers. Residuary powers. You know residuary powers? The powers which are not written. Fine. All remaining left powers. Right? Hence, USA is centrifugal. Centrifugal. ठीक है. अब इंडिया में has the states formed the center? No. British government was unitary, and for the administrative convenience, highly centralized administration was divided into a federation. So, अब center is giving power to the states. Will center give up all its powers? No. Center will give the minimum necessary powers. So, flow of power is towards the center. ठीक है, देखो right. In India, union has created the states. Right. Indian model is called holding together model. Holding together model. Right. We can also call it as centripetal. Centripetal. Forces towards the center. Now underline this word holding together. What does this mean? Indian model is holding together. See, there was no desire to give powers to the states. Fine. But at the time of independence, there were certain regions which demanded autonomy, or they even said we will not be a part. For example, Mizos, Nagas. Fine. Now it is like a concession given to them so that they don't leave us and we are held together. Fine. So it is called as holding together model. So we are not federal in our spirit. Fine. We are federal only because of compulsions. And the compulsion was that to keep different communities together, we have to go for federal model. And so as minimum possible, we have given to the states. And that is why the post-independence period of Indian politics is, once people thought they have got right, but once they started working, they realized that actually federalism is a eyewash. Fine. And then the demands for autonomy started. The demands for autonomy went further into the secessionist demands. that they are not happy with this arrangement. Nagas are not happy with this arrangement. There is a news that maybe government is offering Nagas some big solution. Fine. So maybe you will see, or you may come to see that Jammu Kashmir may be losing its autonomy and Naga region may get more autonomy. Fine. So a different type of a treatment can be there. Different type of solutions can be there. जैसे यूएस का क्या है, दो कंट्रीज नॉर्थ कोरिया और ईरान, दोनों के साथ न्यूक्लियर इशू है बट दोनों की डीलिंग अलग अलग है. तो हो सकता है जैसे अब आर्टिकल्स में आ रहा है नागास का भी स्पेशल जाएगा, बट हो सकता है दे मे गेट मोर. फाइन, यू नेवर नो. फाइन. सो दिस इज लाइक इंडियन मॉडल इज holding together model, so that the people don't leave it and they do not need to compromise. नहीं पॉसिबल है बेवकूफ़ी, वहाँ जब खाली है तो क्या दिक्कत है. वहीं पे करनी. ठीक है. So now you have understood, you can clarify this word, why it is called loose federation, sorry, why it is called holding together model. Fine. Now another very interesting thing about Indian model, lot of articles are also coming, that India is asymmetrical model and US is symmetrical model. Fine. So write it down. Next feature. USA is symmetrical model. Means there is a symmetry. Means there is a evenness among all the states. Fine. All states have equal representation. No state has any special status. But India is asymmetrical. ठीक है. India is asymmetrical. Asymmetrical means some states, yeah, there is no evenness. Look, right, the principle of evenness is not followed. Evenness is not followed. Different states, there is a different arrangement. ठीक है. अब लिखो राइट, यूएस साइड में लिखो राइट, इन यूएसए whether it's a big state or a small state, big state, small state, all have equal representation in upper house. Equal representation in upper house. आप लिखो राइट, in India bigger states have a more representation in upper house than smaller states. So all states do not have equal seats in Rajya Sabha. ठीक है. Which model you think is more democratic? US. US के India. Not USA. India. ठीक है. अब इंडिया के नीचे लिखो, या यूएस पहले इंडिया के नीचे लिखो. लिखो राइट, इंडियन मॉडल इज कॉल्ड एज डेमोस, ये आर्टिकल पढ़ा था तुम लोगों ने? एक आर्टिकल आया था 370 के बाद, लुइस टिलिन का. इंडियन मॉडल इज कॉल्ड एज डेमोस इनेबलिंग मॉडल. डेमोस मतलब पीपल, it gives more voice to the people, and US model is called as demos constraining. It is less democratic, less democratic. स्टेट को वॉइस देना जरूरत है या पर्सन्स को? पर्सन्स को देना. तो यहां क्या हो जाता है, स्मॉलर स्टेट्स आर ओवर रिप्रेजेंटेड, ठीक है, लेकिन इंडिया में सीट्स आर इन प्रोपोर्शन ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन. तो हमने वी हैव गिवन ग्रेटर वॉइस टू द पीपल एंड नॉट टू द स्टेट्स. फाइन. So the person who has given this demos enabling, demos, Alfred Stupin, he says that the developing countries, for them US is not a good model. India is a better model of federation. Have you understood this? ये demos enabling, why it becomes demos enabling? अगर ये one line में question आए, why Indian model is more democratic, more demos enabling, what will be your answer? People in upper house. Upper house क्या है? Council of States. Weightage is given to the population, not to the state. Is this clear? तो जो asymmetrical models हैं, they are called as demos enabling model. Fine. You are giving more choice. Some can live like according to their customs and traditions. All set of states need not to follow one. So the very idea of India is based on which concept? Unity in diversity rather than unity in uniformity. तो US का फोकस किस पे? Unity in uniformity. US diversity. Federalism is what? Federalism is a political arrangement to address the diversity. Fine. जैसे एक US और India both have gone for federalism. For what? Federalism का main logic होता है diversity. You want to give a space. Fine. तो federalism basically, अब ये दोनों प्लस फेडरल कंट्रीज कौन सी होती है? विच आर लार्ज एंड विच आर डाइवर्स. लार्ज एंड डाइवर्स चाइना भी है, बट चाइना डेमोक्रेटिक ही नहीं है. जब वो डेमोक्रेटिक ही नहीं है तो उनको फेडरल नॉन फेडरल से कोई लेना ही देना नहीं, लेकिन दोनों डेमोक्रेटिक हैं. फाइन. अब इंडिया में डाइवर्सिटी को, टू हैंडल द डाइवर्सिटी, if we are unable to handle the diversity, India cannot sustain. Fine. तो अपनी diversity एक regional है, regional से ही link है cultural, culture का link है linguistic, and other diversity is religious. ठीक है. These two diversities, if we manage, idea of India will continue. Fine. So to manage this, we have secularism as a concept. To manage this, we have federalism as a concept. Fine. Federalism and secularism, the two basic structures of Indian Constitution, declared by Supreme Court in SR Bombay case. Fine. If these two dimensions, तो federalism dimension है to accommodate रीजनलिज्म. इसीलिए इंडियन स्टेट्स आर, रीजन क्या है, रीजन लैंग्वेज है एक्चुअली. तो रीजन इन ज्योग्राफी एंड रीजन इन आवर administrative sense is different. So we have adopted the concept of linguistic states. We have not gone for Hindi as an official language. Rather, we have adopted the concept of national languages. Is that clear? So regionalism, हमारा मतलब what is India's approach? India's approach has been unity in diversity. India का सारा concept क्या है? Salad ball. In the ball, you see the different fruits. सब अलग अलग हैं but साथ में. Is that clear? But US model is what? Melting pot. Means you have to dilute the differences and go for one single identity. ठीक है? तो वहां पर emphasis क्या है? Unity in uniformity. हमारा है unity in diversity model. ठीक है? तो उनका nature of secularism भी बहुत simple है. But our nature of secularism is so complicated that it leads to the debate, is India secular or pseudo secular? Neither minority is happy nor majority is happy. Fine? फेडरलिज्म में भी वही कॉम्प्लिकेशन है. यूनियन को लगता है इनके पास कम पावर है, स्टेट को लगता है. ठीक है, तो लेकिन वो सब हमारे कंपल्शंस हैं. फाइन. सो asymmetrical model is the recognition of the diversity, and different regions can have their own diverse ways with some fundamental uniformity. Is this clear? So asymmetrical federalism and symmetrical federalism, these are the two basic things. And in India, federalism is actually more of a administrative convenience. Fine. So have you understood federalism, confederation? ऐसा कुछ लग रहा है कि अब समझ नहीं आ रहा सबको? कोई इशू? India is union of states. Yes. First of all, it is a tradition. Even USA is not called as Federation of States. ठीक है? To show the union. लेकिन इंडिया और यूएस में डिफरेंस क्या है? यूएस इज अ indestructible union of indestructible states, but India is indestructible union of destructible states. यानी our in India states are created by union. Fine. तो एक तो ट्रेडिशन भी है. Normally countries do not use in their constitution the term federal to emphasize on unity. Fine. एक ट्रेडिशन भी है प्लस यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट का एक मैसेज भी है, which Ambedkar has clarified that this is to be known that states have not created the union, rather union has created the states. So this basic thing you have understood, and we'll see it later also when we'll do federalism. Now we will talk in other forms like the democratic constitutions. They are also have different forms like parliamentary, presidential. You also see that more and more number of countries, they are actually semi-presidential. ठीक है? तो लिखो. Administrative. मतलब कोई डिजायर नहीं था. There was no desire to create federalism. ठीक है? तो हमने Why we have adopted federalism? Because there were secessionist demands. We have already suffered from the partition. So to hold the countries, these nationalities together, we created this एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव, जैसे कि गवर्नेंस आसान हो जाए, तो हमने फेडरलिज्म सिर्फ गवर्नेंस पर्पस से लाया है, क्योंकि अगर हम फेडरलिज्म नहीं लाते देन मोर सेसेशनिस्ट ट्रेंड्स वुड हैव बीन देयर. तो फॉर मैनेजिंग द कंट्री मोर easily and with more peace we have gone for federalism. तो हमारा कोई कमिटमेंट नहीं है फेडरलिज्म में. इंडिया इज परहैप्स द ओनली country where the federal constitution turns unitary also in emergency. 356 type का provision is nowhere else. Fine. We will see detail further in Indians usme. So now let us see that there's other way also to understand different constitutions and forms of governments. Yeah, please. So now next is constitutions, right? Constitutions in democratic countries can also be classified into three basic models. First, right, parliamentary system. Second, presidential system. Third, semi-presidential. Semi-presidential. Semi-presidential, France, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Russia, more and more countries are now semi-presidential. Where president also is powerful, prime minister is also powerful. Fine. Now, what are the features of presidential? First of all, let's say features of parliamentary form of government. The basic difference in parliamentary and presidential is separation of powers and fusion of powers. Fine. In every democracy, judiciary is always kept separate. So judicial independence तो होता ही है. Now you have to see whether there is a separation between executive and legislature or not. So in USA there is a strict separation. Fine. But Indian model of separation of powers is actually very loose separation. We do not have any real separation. The parliamentary system is based on fusion of power. Legislature and executive are not separate. Executive is formed out of the legislature. The party having the majority form the government. Is this clear? But in USA, will it make any difference which party is in majority in USA Congress? नहीं, उससे कोई लिंक नहीं. ठीक है. अब इंडिया में government introduces maximum bills, but in USA president has no such power. Is this clear? तो parliamentary system is based on what? It is based on fusion of power. Fine. First feature you write. Parliamentary system is based on fusion of powers. Underline fusion. मतलब fusion of legislative and executive powers. ठीक है? Does Indian Constitution talks about separation between legislature and executive? No. अब इसमें ही लिखो parliamentary system में. In parliamentary system, now tell me, executive control legislature or legislature control executive? Legislature control executive. ठीक है? Parliamentary system and presidential. So in presidential system, executive is strong, and in parliamentary system, legislature is strong. Or in parliamentary system, legislature controls executive. ऐसा होता है? होता है ऐसा? Who controls whom? Executive is strong in presidential or parliamentary? Presidential. बिल्कुल गलत. ठीक है? Executive is strong in parliamentary system. ठीक है? ये सिर्फ एक आई वॉश है. ये कहना कि पार्लियामेंट स्ट्रांग है. ठीक है? क्यों? Executive controls parliament. Parliament, because executive has majority. In fact, executive can decide the life of parliament. If PM says to the president, dissolve the parliament, parliament's life can end. And can parliament really hold government accountable? What they can do? So long the government enjoys majority. ठीक है? तो parliament, does it really establish any financial accountability? कर ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि opposition के पास नंबर गए. फाइन. तो parliamentary system is also known as a system which gives prominence to executive. और तुम लोगों को क्या लग रहा था? President. President in USA is very weak. Fine. In US system, out of these two, Congress is strong. ठीक है? If Congress want, President will not get its salary also. ठीक है? President तो यहाँ पे बजट ही कंट्रोल नहीं करता. कांग्रेस ने कह दिया नहीं पास कर रहे. प्रेसिडेंट के पास ऐसा कोई तरीका नहीं. उसके घर में खाना नहीं रहेगा. लेकिन इंडिया में ऐसा होता है. इन इंडिया एग्जीक्यूटिव कंट्रोल द पब्लिक पर्स. प्रेसिडेंट थोड़ी वहां पे मनी बिल प्रेजेंट करता है. बजट क्या होगा वो लेजिस्लेचर डिसाइड करता है. ऐसे लगता है पार्लियामेंट्री मतलब एग्जीक्यूटिव इज कंट्रोलिंग द पार्लियामेंट, और ये एग्जीक्यूटिव डोमिनेशन है। तो इंडिया या पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम में देयर इज नो सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर. Separation of power is needed to protect the liberties of the people. Liberty is protected better where? In parliamentary or presidential? Presidential. Because all the three branches are separate. ठीक है? Now, which is the strongest elected head? US President or British Prime Minister? British Prime Minister. Because he is not only head of the executive, he is also the head of the legislature. ठीक है? तो ज्यादा डेमोक्रेटिक कौन सा है, यूएस की पार्लियामेंट्री? यूएस ज्यादा डेमोक्रेटिक है. हमें बताया क्या जाता है, पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम, डे टू डे अकाउंटेबिलिटी, बट ऐसा कुछ है नहीं. यूएस इज मोर डेमोक्रेटिक बिकॉज डेमोक्रेसी मीन्स मोर प्रोटेक्शन टू द राइट्स. कौन? कैसे? हाउ डू एस्टेब्लिश द अकाउंटेबिलिटी? भाई कैसे करोगे? लेजिस्लेचर में अपोजिशन कहेगा हमें बोलना है, स्पीकर बोलेगा चुप बैठो. स्पीकर किसका इंसान है? भाई रूलिंग पार्टी का है ना. पहले तुम्हें बोलने देगा, वो टाइम देगा. दूसरी बात है तुम बोलोगे ही तो कर क्या सकते हो भाई? डिसीजन जो है वो तो मेजॉरिटी से लिया जाएगा, वो तो रूलिंग पार्टी के पास है. ब्रिटेन तो अलग ही है ना. इंडिया की बात करो, ब्रिटेन में भी कल्चर है ना वो तो उनका. लेकिन तुम्हें क्या लगता है पंडित नेहरू वॉज वेरी डेमोक्रेटिक? पंडित नेहरू ने ये सिस्टम क्यों लाया? क्योंकि एग्जीक्यूटिव इन अ पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम कंट्रोल्स द पार्लियामेंट ऑल्सो. एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है, लोग पॉलिटिक्स में क्यों जाते हैं? पावर. कौन सी पावर? पैसा. पैसा का कंट्रोल किसके पास होता है? एग्जीक्यूटिव. प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम में नहीं होता. तो एमपीज ये लोग क्या करते हैं, अपनी सैलरी बढ़ाते जाते हैं. यूएस में ऐसा नहीं हो पाता है कि प्रेसिडेंट अपनी सैलरी बढ़ाता जाए. ये इस बात को समझना होगा कि जो लिखा है वो नहीं होता. इट कैन बी योर मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑल्सो. फाइन. तो पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम, प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट डेमोक्रेटिकली इलेक्टेड हेड. दैट्स वाई पंडित नेहरू क्यों जाएंगे प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम में, जहां पे दोनों हाथ में मलाई है, ठीक है, और सिर कढ़ाई में है. क्यों जाओगे जब पैसा पैसा तुम्हारे ही हाथ में है? ऊपर से कैग इज सच अ वीक इंस्टीट्यूशन. In Britain, you cannot spend money without the permission. In India, CAG does only post-mortem after the money is spent. ऐसा कोई सिस्टम नहीं है जो बहुत डेमोक्रेटिक बनाया गया हो. And in extreme situations, there is a system of emergency also. तो Nehru used to be called as concealed dictator. People didn't realize. ठीक है. अरे नेहरू नहीं बनाया कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. अंबेडकर ने तो कहा आई एम द फर्स्ट पर्सन टू बर्न. वो तो एक कंटेक्स्ट में एसिमेट्रिकल एंड सिमेट्रिकल. ठीक है. नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट विच इज मोर डेमोक्रेटिक, प्रेसिडेंशियल और पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम. तो प्रेसिडेंशियल इज मोर डेमोक्रेटिक. व्हाई? Because separation of power is real, and when separation of power is real, your liberty can be protected. Liberty, how will you protect the liberty? When government is accountable to the people. भाई पैसे कहाँ गए? तुमने पैसे खर्च किए, this question who will ask? Parliament. But when Parliament is controlled by the executive, who will ask the question? Who will ask the boss? Fine. तो ये तो बेस्ट सिस्टम है, एग्जीक्यूटिव सिस्टम. पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम मींस डोमिनेशन ऑफ एग्जीक्यूटिव. और उसके हाथ दोनों, वही तो कह रहे हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव भी वो कंट्रोल करता है और लेजिस्लेचर भी वो कंट्रोल करता है. ठीक है. बट प्रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया, प्रेसिडेंट इन यूएसए डजंट कंट्रोल लेजिस्लेचर, दे ओनली कंट्रोल एग्जीक्यूटिव. ठीक है. और उसकी टीम में ऐसा कोई नहीं होता है जिसको मनाए, उनका कोई वो लेजिस्लेटर्स थोड़ी है उसकी टीम में. देयर इज नो नीड ऑफ एंटी डिफेक्शन ना. डिफेक्शन you need for what? Parliamentary system, so that the government can run. So anti-defection law in India is having lot of flaws, because anti-defection law is made to benefit the ruling party, not to solve the problem of defection, not allowing the members of the ruling party defect to other. That is why in India's anti-defection law, a speaker is given power to decide defection or not. Who is a speaker? Prime Minister's man. Not, speaker is not representing the parliament. A speaker is representing the ruling party. So anti-defection law is in favor of the ruling party. There are, like, normally you will understand criticisms of anti-defection law. और तुम लोगों को सबसे बड़ा क्रिटिसिज्म क्या लगता है? इट रेस्ट्रिक्ट्स द फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन. नो, इट ओनली, द बेसिक बिगर प्रॉब्लम इज इट, restriction of freedom of speech and expression is not a problem actually. It is not justified because it gives undue advantage to the ruling party, because the position of a speaker is made very powerful. And anti-defection law is the worst possible law because it doesn't stop defections. Plus, it impacts the basic fundamentals of the constitutional scheme. Constitution under Article 122, what says that judiciary should not intervene in the legislative procedures. But because of anti-defection law, speaker misusing its power, judiciary has to intervene. तो अपना जो constitutional system cannot run according to what is expected, not on expected lines. तो one of the worst law जो है, और normally people give wrong reason why anti-defection law, it restricts the privilege of parliamentarians. That is not a big concern. There are much bigger issues in the anti-defection law. Fine. So now let us come back to parliamentary system, what we were doing. ठीक है. You have written that in parliamentary system, executive controls the legislature. लिखो, right? In parliamentary system, executive control the legislature. Next, in parliamentary system, executive controls the public purse. Control the purse, public purse. Next, in parliamentary system, Prime Minister is Prime Minister can be considered as the strongest democratically elected head. Right, next. Right. Thus the parliamentary system is based on the dominance of executive. अब तो ये बात डाइजेस्ट हो गई कि नहीं हो गई है? अरे नहीं करता भाई, ब्यूरोक्रेसी जो है वो मिनिस्टर की बात सुनती, लेजिस्लेटर की क्या सुनती? लेजिस्लेचर कुछ नहीं है। लॉ भी कौन होता है? डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन होता है भाई। कोई सारे लॉ वही पास होते हैं जो पार्लियामेंट, जो गवर्नमेंट के होते हैं। प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल पास होता है कभी? नहीं होता। तो लेजिस्लेचर मतलब बस यही समझ लो, एग्जीक्यूटिव ही है लेजिस्लेचर। वो तो नाम के लिए दो चार लोग और रखे हुए हैं, ठीक है, कि भाई तुम भी आ जाना, बैठ जाना। तुमको पावर थोड़ी होती है। तुम नाराज क्यों? और क्यों चाह रहे हो? जो है वो है अपने देश में, कोई दिक्कत नहीं। तो अपने ही देश में क्या, तो ब्रिटेन में भी है। व्हाई डू फील कि कोई अन्याय हो गया है? ऐसा थोड़ी है, ठीक है। सब आई वॉश को ही पॉलिटिक्स कहते हैं। पॉलिटिक्स का मतलब ही आई वॉश है, ठीक है। तो जो जितना काजल लगा दे आंख में, उतना बड़ा पॉलिटिशियन होता है, ठीक है। तो पॉलिटिशियन क्या, नेहरू क्या कम बड़े पॉलिटिशियन थे? भाई पॉलिटिशियन का प्रोफेशन ही यही है, ठीक है। सो तो देयर इज नो रियल चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस इन अ पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम, ठीक है। अब यू कैन कॉल इट मेरिट, यू कैन कॉल इट डिमेरिट, अब ये तो तुम्हारे ऊपर है कि हाउ डू यू टेक इट। लाइक ही हैड गॉट हर्ट कि भाई ऐसा क्यों? तो ऐसा कोई वो सिस्टम नहीं, बट दिस इज अ सिस्टम। नाउ व्हाट इज द बिगेस्ट मेरिट? लिखो, राइट, या लिखो व्हाट इज द जस्टिफिकेशन ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम। समझ में आ गया ना? ऐसे लिखो, व्हाट इज द biggest justification advanced for, what is the biggest justification advanced for parliamentary system? Right, it is said government can be held accountable. Government can be held accountable on day-to-day basis. यही तो बताया गया तुम लोगों को कि भाई जब तक गवर्नमेंट enjoys the confidence of the house, it can remain in power. लेकिन यहाँ जो पॉलिटिकल साइंस वाले स्टूडेंट्स होंगे वो समझेंगे कि गवर्नमेंट इज हेल्ड अकाउंटेबल ऑन डे टू डे बेसिस इज व्हाट? डिस्कोर्स, ठीक है। ऐसा होता नहीं, फाइन। सो इट इज सेड गवर्नमेंट इज हेल्ड अकाउंटेबल ऑन डे टू डे बेसिस, फाइन, अंडरलाइन करो। या implied, what does this mean? It means government can remain in power so long it enjoys the confidence of the house. ठीक है, right, next paragraph. It can also be considered as the demerit. Underline karo demerit. Right, the biggest demerit is political instability. Underline political instability. So if the ruling party MPs, like in Karnataka, they withdraw support, the government will grow. Fine. So it lacks stability. Now there is always a fear that somebody can withdraw the support. So is there a scope for greater use of money and muscle power in a parliamentary system? Yes or no? ठीक है लिखो. Right. To address the instability, comma, there is a greater possibility of the use of money and muscle power, especially when it is a hung assembly. ठीक है? Full stop. Right. Defections is a problem in parliamentary system. Defection is a problem in parliamentary system. So when it was a coalition era, many people were recommending India should shift. We keep on listening about it time and again, that India should shift towards presidential system. So now let us see presidential system. What are the features? Right, strict separation. Next, unlike parliamentary system, comma, in presidential system, the term of executive and legislature are not dependent on each other. ठीक है? Right? Hence, the virtue of presidential system is stability. Those who recommend presidential system, their main concern is stability. Now, why stability in a government is a virtue? Because you can make the policies. If there is no instability, there is a lot of problems. There is no stability. Fine. So biggest strength is actually stability. Fine. Next, देखो, right, in presidential system like that of USA, the strongest institution we are not talking about judiciary here. The stronger institution, you can say, stronger institution is legislature or Congress. US Congress is यूएसए इज लेजिस्लेचर, ठीक है। फिर लिखो राइट, इन यूएसए प्रेसिडेंट does not even control the budget. ठीक है, जजेस की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि किसी भी डेमोक्रेसी में यू हैव टू टेक इट फॉर ग्रांटेड दैट जुडिशरी इज इंडिपेंडेंट। अब जजेस का अपॉइंटमेंट कोई ना कोई तो करेगा ही, बजाय जजेस खुद ही करें, तो चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस होना तो अच्छी बात है, ठीक है, लेकिन अपॉइंटमेंट से कुछ नहीं होता। और मेनली इन दोनों गवर्नमेंट्स, जज जुडिशरी तो वैसे भी एक थर्ड पार्टी है, सारा जो गवर्नेंस लेजिस्लेचर एंड एग्जीक्यूटिव के बीच की चीज है, ठीक है। So now you understand the merit and demerit, and we understand the problems of defections, the money power, muscle power and all. So now the question is, likho question, should India shift towards presidential system? Now there are many other features of a presidential system. Jaise if you go deeper into the system of executive and presidential system, तो एग्जीक्यूटिव कैसा होता है, प्रेसिडेंट के सेक्रेटरीज हैं वो, और इंडिया में मिनिस्टर्स हैं, ठीक है। तो देयर आर मेनी अदर फीचर्स। अब शुड इंडिया शिफ्ट टुवर्ड्स प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम, तो थिंग इज फॉर ऑल प्रैक्टिकल पर्पसेस आवर एग्जीक्यूटिव बिहेव्स लाइक प्रेसिडेंशियल। हाउ आवर एग्जीक्यूटिव बिहेव, मतलब प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज एज गुड एज प्रेसिडेंट, जैसे यूएस का प्रेसिडेंट। आर यू अंडरस्टैंडिंग डिफरेंस क्या है? यहां पर मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं, थियोरिटिकली मिनिस्टर्स आर फर्स्ट अमंग इक्वल्स, बट प्रैक्टिकली इज इट फर्स्ट अमंग इक्वल्स? नो। अब प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शंस आर वन मैन शो, इंडियन इलेक्शंस आर व्हाट? वन मैन शो। People are not concerned who are the other leaders in the party. Is that clear? So basically, what is the difference in the American and the British approach? British, they are more idealistic, and Americans are more practical. Even British system is also not practically parliamentary system, ठीक है। अमेरिकन और ब्रिटिश में यही बेसिक डिफरेंस है कि अमेरिकन्स आर वेरी वेरी प्रैक्टिकल। वी विल सी अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड यू विल सी दैट अमेरिकन्स डोंट एक्सपेक्ट स्पीकर टू बी न्यूट्रल, बिकॉज अमेरिकन्स एक्सेप्ट दिस, अ पर्सन कैन नॉट बी न्यूट्रल, तो उससे न्यूट्रलिटी वो एक्सपेक्ट भी नहीं करते। अब इंडिया का प्रॉब्लम क्या है? वी इन इंडिया स्पीकर इज अ मेंबर ऑफ अ पार्टी, बट वी वांट ए स्पीकर नॉट टू फेवर हिज पार्टी। नाउ दिस क्रिएट अ बिग चैलेंज फॉर स्पीकर्स धर्म, कि भाई वो करे तो क्या करे, ठीक है। लेकिन अमेरिकन्स जैसे हैं वो वैसे ही हैं। अमेरिका में क्या है, व्हाट अमेरिकन्स बिलीव, अब इलीगल इमिग्रेंट्स, इफ यू कैन नॉट सेंड देम बैक, आफ्टर सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम देयर पॉलिसी हैव बीन टू लीगलाइज, फाइन, बिकॉज यू go for the practical approach. Similarly, like prostitution in India, now we have not been able to eliminate, but at the same time we maintain this idealistic stand that we will not legalize it. अब prostitution, it was always better. Even Supreme Court says, if you cannot eliminate, it is better you regularize it. तो अमेरिकन अप्रोच ही क्या है? अमेरिका जो है वो ब्रिटेन का प्रैक्टिकल ब्रिटेन सिस्टम पे, देयर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज बेस्ड ऑन अंडरस्टैंडिंग of the flaws of the British system. Fine. And it comes with more practical approach. Is this clear? In a way, you can consider presidential system as an improvement in many ways over the parliamentary system, because anything that comes late is based on the experience of the previous system. Fine. Now, after presidential system came semi-presidential. Semi-presidential, and no system is perfect, it has its own pros and cons. But semi-presidential system is now considered to be better alternative. So all new countries, they go for that because it contains the good points of both systems. Fine. Anyway, our question is, should India go for presidential system or not? ठीक है? What will be your answer? Answer फिलहाल के लिए no है. ठीक है? जब तक अपना सिस्टम बदलता नहीं. ठीक है? जब सिस्टम बदल जाएगा तो आंसर भी बदल जाएगा. Is that clear? और हम वैसे लॉजिक ले आएंगे जो उसको सपोर्ट करते हो. ठीक है? तो फिलहाल तो हमें सपोर्ट ही करना है. वी विल हैव टू फाइंड आउट द गुड थिंग्स इन द पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम. फाइन. तो लिखो राइट. पहले तो शुड देयर बी अ प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम. टू आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन, द फर्स्ट थिंग यू शुड बी राइटिंग व्हाई देयर इज अ सजेशन. तुम्हारे आंसर में पहली पॉइंट क्या होना चाहिए? इस बात को एक्सप्लेन करो, व्हाई there is a call for presidential system. Look right. Why there is a call for presidential system, or why people propose it? Among the prominent persons proposing include even Shashi Tharoor. Fine. Why people propose it? Why people propose presidential in India? What can be the most digestible logic? Stability. Stability. ठीक है? लिखो right. Right. Since 1989, India had witnessed coalition government till 2014. Underline करो coalition government. Right. In the absence of healthy coalition culture, we witnessed problems like defections, horse trading, money power, policy paralysis. ठीक है? Right. Hence, presidential form of government was proposed. ठीक है? Now you have to take a stand. Should we shift or should we not shift? ठीक है? लिखो right. Should we shift? Why to shift we know. Your stand is, should we shift or should we not shift? So I think what should be your stand? Leave what system we have. What your common sense tells. should we shift or should we not shift? What can be the argument? We should not shift. Huh? Q. Presidential system, why should we continue with the parliamentary system? Why should we not shift? Diversity. We are familiar, matlab it is convenient, and we are not adaptable to learn the new things. Why? Why you think so? Is it a good thing that we should be resistant to learn the new things? Should this be a good argument? Then apply your mind. Hmm? We can reform. Why should we reform and why should we not overhaul? Good, good debate. Huh? Pardon? कहाँ सक्सेसफुल है? इतनी तो प्रॉब्लम्स हो चुकी है, मनी पावर, मसल पावर, ये बड़े बड़े स्कॉलर कह रहे हैं भैया बदलो. इनका एक पॉइंट कुछ अच्छा था, तुम्हारा पॉइंट क्या था? It's better to reform and not overhaul. So you don't want far-reaching changes. Why? Why reform is a good idea than substituting and try something new? Will it work or not? Fine. So you can go for piecemeal engineering, you can reform and fine. What? बस खत्म, ये नहीं. और क्या चाहिए? अभी नहीं, मतलब लेकिन मान लो again it comes back, because in a diverse country like India, coalition is always a possibility, and you already know that the condition of India's ethics in politics is hardly there. So we can think proportional representation to will make government more unstable. Apply your mind. We are known for this. Inka argument that experience, we had experience, so we adopted parliamentary system, and now we had such a bad experience. Fine, that for the sake of this bad experience, we can try for a change also. And you should be flexible. Don't be rigid. Don't give this argument that I am rigid, I will not change, I am comfortable. और क्या हो सकता है? दिमाग क्यों नहीं लगा रहे हो? This is also a good argument that could sustain democracy. India as the only third world country sustaining democracy. What is the link with presidential system? Do you think we have sustained democracy because of parliamentary system? इस स्टेटमेंट का मतलब क्या है? और कुछ दिमाग लगाओ. नहीं, why won't? नहीं, they will have to do it if people say that change it. ये तो आर्गुमेंट बहुत ही, एक तो लिख ही नहीं सकते. हाँ, suitable, that is acceptable argument, suitable for our plural society. But how it is suitable? Can you substantiate your point? I'm not asking coalition. It's not necessary that parliamentary system has to be coalition. In the upper house का कोई लेना ही देना नहीं. upper house तो राज्यसभा का है. Actually तुम लोग जो statement बोल रहे हो वो कुछ सुने statements हैं. But these are not the statements which you have heard and you thought कि भाई ये है क्या. इसलिए when you are giving the statements, you are not able to substantiate what you want to say. Fine. कुछ सुनी सुनी बातें चल रही हैं इधर उधर की. Public sentiments. You will be an administrator who will go with the public sentiment. भाई public कह रही इसको मार दो तो मार दोगे तुम. Is public sentiment a good argument? हाँ, डेलिब्रेशन तो कांग्रेस में भी होता है. Okay, this can be some fine. That let's not be so obsessed with the stability. What? Discrimination between a state can come when we discuss federalism and something else, not in a presidential and the parliamentary system. Capitalism, इतना लंबा जाने की जरूरत नहीं. तो I reject this argument. Public sentiment. तुम कोई अकबर नहीं हो कि public sentiment. वो जमाने चले गए. Fine. You have to follow the constitution. So this is a sensible argument, but who has given should justify. This is a sensible argument, but not complete. Matlab, this argument lacks clarity. Experience, but fine, this can be the least important reason. Reform, not overhaul, does have a sensible thing. This is not our culture, this is the British culture. Then you should shift to, you should faster shift to Panchayati Raj. Bas khatam. ठीक. अच्छा, now tell me, every like constitution, do you think if we will not change our habits, ठीक है? Even if parliamentary system is changed into the presidential system, will it make any difference? Fine. So constitutions are not good or bad. It all depends upon the persons who are running the constitution. Fine. And howsoever good constitution is, if there is a lack of a political will and if there is a lack of ethics, nothing will work. System नहीं बदलना होता है, लोगों को बदलना होता है. You need not to change the system or institution. You have to change the value system. And much of the problems of politics has a solution only in ethics. अगर लोग अच्छे रहे तो कोई भी सिस्टम चलेगा. अगर लोग सही हैं, then a country doesn't have a written constitution, still it will work. But if people, if your culture is, if your value system is wrong, nothing will work. Fine. So the very biggest argument is no system is perfect. Fine. It all depends upon the persons who are running the institution, how they are running those institutions. And if you will not change the hands, if you not change the persons, maybe the presidential system can take some more dangerous pace. That's why I told you to read the speech of Ambedkar. For many answers, you can take up a lot of views from that particular speech. जैसे United Nations. United Nations has not failed. We failed UN. Because UN is nothing. Fine. So it cannot be better than the persons who are running that particular institution. Is this clear? तो जब भी इंस्टीट्यूशनल चेंज है तो पहला दिमाग लगाना है, लोग तो बदले नहीं, इंस्टीट्यूशन बदलने से कुछ होने वाला है? क्या बदलना है? नॉट द सिस्टम बट वैल्यू सिस्टम. If you have a value system, any system will work. If our value system does not change, you keep on experimenting, nothing will work. So what works is the political will. Is this clear? So plus, no system is, that is a answer. No, nothing. You can never think of anything which is perfect. We are not gods to create something perfect. Every system will have its perfection and imperfections. ठीक है? कैसे आंसर देना है? बड़ी बड़ी बातें करनी है, छोटा सोचना ही नहीं, नीचे देखना ही नहीं. Is that clear? तो you always talk in a big ways, like बड़ी बातें सोचो. सिस्टम बदलने से पहले क्वेश्चन तुम्हारे दिमाग में क्या आना चाहिए था? क्या सिस्टम बदलने से चीजें बदल जाएंगी? तो यही पहला आंसर होना चाहिए था. ठीक है, तो अभी लिखो इसका एक आंसर, अगर लिख सकते हो. चलो अभी तुम्हें समराइज भी करना है आज का लेक्चर. ठीक है, या चलो आंसर इसका हम लोग बाद में लिखेंगे. अब लेक्चर का जरा समरी लिख दो जल्दी से. क्या क्या हुआ आज? समरी लिखो, मैं अभी आ रही हूँ. Independent currency. What is that? States have their own currency. Not needed, but if they want, they can. I don't know. Like you have to see, is currency under the federal list or the state list? पीछे देख के नहीं लिखी जाती समरी या कुछ भी. भाई याद करो ना, हमने कहाँ से स्टार्ट किया. व्हाट वाज द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट आई डिस्कस्ड? कैपिटलिज्म या लिबरलिज्म एंड कम्युनिस्ट सिस्टम. और क्या डिस्कस किया उसके बाद? यूनिटरी एंड फेडरल. कॉन्फेडरेशन डिस्कस किया. सिमेट्रिकल, एसिमेट्रिकल, प्रेसिडेंशियल, पार्लियामेंट्री. इसको पीछे क्यों देख के करने वाले थे? ठीक है, अब इसमें से कौन सा टर्म नहीं आ रहा? अब इसमें एक तरह होमवर्क लिख लो. होमवर्क में लिखो दिस, जस्ट राइट डिफाइन. जस्ट थ्री लाइन्स से ज्यादा नहीं लिखना है. डिफाइन asymmetrical federalism and why it is called demos enabling. मेन कॉपी में लिखो, मेन पेज पर. demos enabling. Next question. What is the fundamental difference in the dual and cooperative federalism? Next, what is the objective of constitutions in a democratic country? Plus you read those, the speech, grammar of anarchy speech, and tell me the highlights of that speech. So tomorrow you will have your economy class. Which article? अच्छा, लुइस स्टिलिन का. ऐसे लुइस स्टिलिन का फेडरलिज्म, बट वो तुम्हें ऐसे आएगा नहीं बिकॉज वो टेक्निकली लिखा हुआ है. बट ट्राई कर सकते हो. हिंदू में था फेडरलिज्म, लुइस स्टिलिन, हिंदू, ऐसे 370 के बस अगस्त डाल दो, शायद आ जाएगा. So tomorrow you will have economy class. Fine.